Redditors who were dating someone that went from, "I think I want to marry this person," to, "I think I need a restraining order." What happened? We were actually engaged to be married. Then she went on holidays without me and came back pregnant. She then told me, "You have never done anything to prove you really love me. Accept this baby and help me raise it to prove it." I declined and asked her to leave the home that I paid for, and that was in my name. She refused, so I made arrangements, cancelled my lease, then left and told her there were 4 days left on the lease, I think. She wailed, "But what am I supposed to do? I don't have a job." Yeah, you probably should have thought of that before you cheated on your fiancé and got yourself pregnant. I graduated. She wanted to transfer schools, so we moved to a college town where she told me she'd been accepted as a transfer. Turns out she hadn't been accepted, and when she applied, was not accepted. She got a job at Walmart while trying to figure out her next move. After about 2 months, she decides we should move to Pittsburgh. She's convinced this will solve all her problems and make her happy. Except we're in a recession and I just got my first good job. I don't want to move. She became abusive. I didn't want to go home. She was constantly negative and on the edge of a screaming fight. I was just avoiding her at the end. We were together 4 years before that, and she was always moody but not abusive. 6 months of that, and she went to her hometown to take a semester at a local school and stay with her parents. I called her 2 weeks later and told her not to come back. It had been like a weight was lifted from me, and I never wanted to see her again. After being beat down mentally from her, I started suffering from erectile dysfunction at 22 years of age. Eventually, I mustered the courage to leave her. She quickly moved on to someone else, who would later become her husband, and called me every week to basically rub it in, saying how much better he was than me, how much bigger he was than me, etc., etc. I moved out of state, changed my number, never heard from her again. She called my parents and even showed up at their home, but they told her to go away. About 10 years later, my friend ran into an old friend of hers. Apparently, my ex got arrested for beating her own mother, got out of jail and beat her husband, then tried to take their kids from him. She was arrested again and later released. Guess I dodged a huge bullet there. You dodged a massive bullet. And I'm sorry you had to deal with all of her shit and what she caused you. I sort of feel like the ED was your body's way of going, "This chick, I just can't. I don't feel good with her and I don't feel safe." It seems like a sign that she's not the right one for you. I'm glad it's over with her and that you're free. I hope everything has gone back to how it ought to be for you, and that she ends up locked up somewhere. Jesus, insanity. I was dating a guy who was very sweet in the beginning. After about 6 months, he got possessive. He didn't trust me. An example of this was one night I told him I was meeting a friend I used to work with at a bar a block away. We lived in a safe area and it was a short walk. Her name sounded like it could be male or female, but I assured him she was a she. He showed up at the bar while we were there and it made him look very insecure. He began tracking my phone's GPS. I found out when I stopped at a relative's house after work on my way home and he freaked out and called my mom. She actually knew that was where I was and he had a hard time believing I wasn't cheating. The last straw was my first week at a new job. I worked nights and I had my phone. I got this long-winded email regarding an innocent comment on a Facebook selfie of me. There were screenshots of it and a huge manifesto about why my buddies online all wanted to take me away from him. After I broke up with him, I got emails for months, swinging between apologies and telling me I was the abuser. I got emails telling me he was being drugged. It was insane. I walked to the bar at night and he showed up. Okay, maybe he wanted to make sure you got there safe. Alright. He began tracking my phone's GPS. Nope. I got this long-winded email regarding an innocent comment on a Facebook selfie of me. There were screenshots of it and a huge manifesto about why my buddies online all wanted to take me away from him. What the? This was like a classic 3 strikes and you're out story. 9 out of 10. The thing at the bar sounds pretty creepy, but calling her mom to ask about her GPS location is beyond crazy. I would have never made it past 2 strikes with that person. You really shouldn't be dating if you can't trust someone enough to go out to drinks with friends without you. When I was in a relationship that went from good and fun to why am I smashing plates in a blind rage in a year and a half, I really didn't appreciate how much someone can drag you into hell with them. I think my crazy was self-defense. The first 9 months or so were amazing. We had so much fun, threw great parties for all our friends, went to all the concerts, etc. Then for about 5 to 6 months things got rocky, and he started becoming obsessed with the idea that I was emotionally cheating on him. The last 3 months were pure hell. The things he was accusing me of made no sense. The situations we would get into were insane, and somehow always my fault. And he would abandon me, saying that I was the reason things had gotten out of control and that he had to leave for his own protection. It made me feel like a monster. I signed up with a therapist because I thought I was having a psychiatric break. After a while, every time I saw him, it started with my apologies for how I acted the last time, and I would try to be as shut down as possible. And then my phone would buzz, and he would look at me accusingly and then act distant the rest of the night. And I would be like, it's my mom. My mom is texting me. Look, my phone is unlocked. It's just my mom. And he would still act sour the whole rest of the night, withholding affection, every physical gesture of disgust and disappointment. Every moment of every day became a full-time job of proving to him I was better, that I wasn't crazy. But everything I did to do that made me look crazier. I left him in a huge dramatic fit of rage finally, and it took months to normalize. And only in hindsight can I see how I went from being a pretty normal person with normal people problems to followed him to the depths of my personality's ability to retaliate against lies. And then I fought my way kicking and screaming out of that hole and I left him down there. I had never acted that way before or since. I had never gotten into rages towards anyone like that, other than when in that relationship with him. And this was 4 years ago, so I'm pretty sure I'm not insane, as it started and stopped all within the time he was in my life. The only consolation is that within months of us breaking up, he burned every bridge with every friend we had, lost his job, and ended up moving out of state. I still live here and have a pleasant, quiet life with someone else, and I'm still friends with the people that were our mutual friends during that relationship. I'm a lot less judgmental when I see someone have a very out-of-character rage fit now though. Jesus Christ, it is so possible to be sucked into someone else's crazy, and since it's all out of context for you, you don't know how to act, and you look like the crazy one. The worst version I have of this was a guy that I had been dating, who rammed my truck with a moving van repeatedly at an immigration checkpoint in New Mexico, well after dark. He thought it was funny. He'd been behaving badly, but I just thought it was the stress of the move. The aggravated assault by U-Haul is when I decided to break up with him. He stalked me for years after that, harassing me at work, which led to me getting fired. I switched from law firms to legal software, and that seemed to make it harder to find me. His stalking ended in blowing up a brick-and-mortar mailbox with plastic explosives. I think he laid low after that, because the FBI was looking for him. He eventually moved back to California. Years later, an ex-girlfriend of his contacted me about 7 years later when she was settling his estate. She wanted to make sure there weren't any children. I'll throw my hat into the ring here. Dated a chick years ago. She was essentially everything I thought I wanted in a girl. She was cute, funny, liked just enough things I liked for us to have common interests, but just different enough to show each other new things and experiences. I was heavy into her and she was heavy in too. Then things got weird. She started getting jealous of high school friends I'd known way before her, and even went as far as telling me I wasn't allowed to hang out with some of my female friends, except for the few she thought were uglier than her. Things got worse. She started getting jealous of inanimate objects like my game consoles and video games, some of which she gave me. It came to a head when my grandmother asked me to watch her dog. She was a tiny hand dog that I adored, and one day I was half asleep and saw her literally kick this tiny dog off my bed, like with her feet. I asked her what the hell her problem was, and she told me that she doesn't like that I give the dog more attention than her. Things got even worse. She would physically abuse me when I did things she didn't like, such as bending my fingers, hitting me in the face, etc. Eventually, everything I did she didn't like. After a while, I got the courage to dump her ass, and she tries to tell me she's pregnant to keep me, which is an obvious lie. After that, I discovered she'd still stalk my Facebook page, and told some of her friends and mutual friends that I was the abuser. I also learned that when I was away, she'd let dudes feel her up and other stuff too. Luckily, I've landed a great girl that cares about me and isn't a jealous psycho like she was. Started dating a woman who agreed with me on the idea of being childless. I was 100% certain, and still am almost 25 years later, that I did not and do not want children. We commenced dating. 2 months into dating, she told me that I had to 1. Quit my job that paid very well and get an even higher paying job immediately, if not sooner. 2. That I had to purchase her a large house in Connecticut. At the time she was living in Queens, New York, and I was living in southern Westchester County. And finally, 3. I had to get her pregnant immediately with the first of 10, yes, 10 children she wanted by me. No, she was not kidding. At all. I think I invented ghosting in that moment. It was, after all, 1994. How hard did I ghost her? I moved from New York to Arizona overnight. I vanished. We're Facebook friends now, though. Edit. Okay, since this took off, I will update. She actually ended up following me to Arizona. She tracked me down. I had a fairly large internet presence at the time on Usenet, so she was able to get messages to me, and ended up moving 2 hours away to Phoenix. After a few weeks, it was clear that I was not interested in resuming the relationship. She started dating around, met a guy, and later married him. They are by all accounts very happily married, and no kids. This would have been late 1994, early 1995. In 1998, I met the woman that is now my wife of almost 20 years, and moved to Northern California to marry her. I ended up with 2 stepkids. They were 17 and 21 at the time, and now I have 3 grandchildren, whom I absolutely adore. So I sort of bent the rules. I got all the awesome of grandkids without having to actually raise kids myself. My wife, to answer the inevitable question, is 10 years older than I am. She friended me on Facebook. There are no hard feelings. We both realized that we would have made terrible spouses for each other. She found who she needed, and I certainly found what I needed. My marriage has been literal bliss. Wow, these stories are intense. Anyways, I'm Real Life and thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you again real soon and have a great day.